right hand spites you, cut it off, or something along
But
those
that's
lines.
not for somebody else to do.
That's a
That's for you
symbolic
to do.
thing.
Well, that's true. It is for you to do, and it is symbolic. But
My question is about Sharia law. We talked about this way back on those really tough questions we were asking, and we talked about that there are some things in Sharia law that don't go along with the Constitution. But you said, but the Quran says that we follow the law of the land that we're in, and that you don't go against Sharia law would not enforce
So, for instance,
anything.
Sharia, I could marry 4 women. Okay, as long as I could treat them equally, I could marry up to 4 women, but I have to treat them fairly and equally, right? But the law of the land here says you can only marry 1. I can't say my religion tells me I can marry 4. I'm going to marry 4. I got to abide by the
You
law
gotta
of the
abide
land.
the law of the land. So we came to, and I've been actually doing some studying to try to come to an understanding. The question is about Sharia law, concern that Americans and others have, that we hear that Muslims want to have Sharia law, some Sharia law courts. And what I understand now is that they don't want criminal courts, they don't want Sharia law
We have a
courts,
Sharia law. We have a Sharia court in Dallas.
but it's not a criminal law court.
It's not. It's a
No.
civil law.
It's a
So if
civil-
2 Muslims want to take their issue in front of them and have it resolved Islamically, you can do that.
Okay, now and so here's the question I want to ask. Yeah, and that's my understanding is what they're asking are for civil law courts, and the example is the Beit Din, the Jewish courts that are rabbinical courts that supposedly have jurisdiction over civil matters. They don't really have jurisdiction over civil matters.
They could give religious viewpoints, and if they want to follow them, they can.
We have in America many churches, our church, and have church courts of some kind but they have jurisdiction over religious matters, but not civil matters. The civil matters, they do have jurisdiction over civil matters
Marriage.
if the 2 people agree that they will abide by the agreement of the court. But it's just media. It has no authority as far as the government is concerned. It has
And
no
neither does the Sharia law
civil
court.
or criminal.
in
So it's like
Dallas.
mediation. And my question is what Muslims are asking when they say we would like to have we'd like to have Sharia law courts that only have on civil matters, and that people have to agree to whatever the results of the court are. It won't have any binding civil governmental authority to back it up and so on. It's just like mediation. Is that what they're asking for? And if
It's not where
so,
we're at. We have them.
if that's what they're,
There's one here. I'm sure there's one in New York. There's some in California.
I'm
We
sure there
have
are, and many churches have that kind of thing.
Right.
But it's voluntary. In other words, they only
Right.
have religious authority and
But
voluntary.
let me tell you, if Muslims really wanted Sharia law, wouldn't we implement it in Egypt? That's 80-something% Muslim. We don't. Wouldn't we implement it in Pakistan, which is 90-something% Muslim? They don't. So you think, so this thing about Sharia law is whoever's trying to scare y'all of Muslims is using words you don't understand. That's the boogeyman kind of thing.
like
right?
infidel.
So, like infidel. The thing is, if you really look at statistics, Muslims in this country, we're the most law-abiding people in this country. If you look at the mass murders, the last 300 mass murders that have happened in this country, what they define, the FBI defines as mass murders, only 2 have been done by Muslims.
The rest are Democrats.
So you're more than likely, you should be afraid of him and him and him and him more than you should, and him than you should be more afraid of me. Because that's who's committing, white men between the ages of 18 and 50 are the ones that are committing the majority of mass murders in this country.
I want to see a list of that.
You can. I mean, these are FBI numbers, and I get it for you.
I want to get to the bottom here. What I
Okay, I'm
want
sorry.
to get you to say to me is, yes, Tom, your conclusion is correct. I have concluded.
Let's just get to that.
It-
Yes,
my-
Tom, your
Yeah,
conclusion is
So my
correct.
conclusion has been, if I understand what you're saying, that basically we're not asking for anything more than what we already have in Dallas or anywhere else can have, is religious courts that have religious authority, just like any other church can have,
Right.
and that would have authority to mediate if the 2 parties are agreed upon it and want to accept it just wouldn't have any, but it would not have the law, it wouldn't have the government to back it up and so on.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, that's what I hear.
No, you're absolutely right. Yes, sir.
Can you touch a little bit on the differences and the importance of Sunni and Shia? A little bit.
It's a political difference.
It's a political.
It's a political difference. Shia and Sunni, they both of us, we pray 5 times a day, fast the month of Ramadan, perform pilgrimage to Mecca, pay alms, we profess our faith. Right.
So it's
So
not
the major
necessarily a
difference
in interpretation of the religion. It's a
but there is some difference in interpretation of the religion. So and just like you have in any split, right? Then
It's a different sect. They have changed their beliefs.
similar to like Catholics and
Protestants.
Protestants,
Catholic.
Roman Catholics.
Wow.
That's how it is. Yeah.
But
That's
it's
something.
primarily a political difference that they say that Ali should have been the first Khalifa and not Abu Bakr. And that's where the political difference started. Not that he was or he wasn't, they just said he should have been, and that's where they kind of split. And then they started using some traditions that are not very strong traditions of Prophet Muhammad. And there are differences
one
in
seems to be a little bit more violent than the other.
You know what? That's not true. That doesn't have anything to do with. I mean, because of what you're being fed. But if we look at the religion itself, like for instance, Shiites, and this is just one example, allow the way they beat themselves. That's we don't do that. They allow for pleasure marriage. We can't do that. If you're going to get
Pleasure
married,
marriage.
it's a commitment for life, and your intention going in has to be for that.
So they deviated themselves a lot
From the Sunnis.
from the Sunni.
But can you can say extreme, more extreme, or less extreme? That's not good generalization. It's not, because some of them are really liberal, and some of them just like in
So in
like in
terms of
Christianity,
ISIS-
just like you have your extremes everywhere.
Right. In terms of ISIS, though, is it predominantly one or
No,
the other?
ISIS is predominantly Sunni.
Okay.
It is
But they're
Sunni,
not Muslim.
Okay.
ISIS-
but we don't see them as
We
Muslim.
don't consider
Them
these
Muslim,
people-
I get that.
We say they're out. They're out of this religion.
Well, and the evidence is
They're terrorists.
our own government's been training and funding them.
And we should never forget that the majority, I mean, if you see like maybe more than 90% killing terrorist attack globally are Muslims. They are killing you.
We are the victims.
If you can pick up the facts.
Oh,
from
yeah, they're
Google,
killing
anyway,
other Muslims.
Most of them are Muslim, they're
Sure.
dying. Even
Yeah.
in the suicide bombing in Pakistan, if you see in other countries, there's so many people die.
So I mean, and Islam is not the only one with terrorists. Look what happened in Yugoslavia. And this wasn't that long ago. It was 20 years ago. What they did in
Yards or what-
Yugoslavia, where the Serbs,
I'm
the
not
Protestants,
exempting anyone.
and the
Just
Croatians, the
getting clarity.
Catholics, killed hundreds of thousands of Muslims, the Bosnians. You know, so it's all about power and control and ego, and people use religion to rally people around them to do stupid things.
Amen to that. What's the Muslim word for amen?
I mean, really close. But we don't do the hallelujah. And the,
You don't have praise and worship hands?
yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Are there Christian churches allowed in Islamic countries?
Yes,
I have been told that there were no Christian churches.
go to Egypt. They're everywhere.
Now in Saudi Arabia, they can't build any churches.
No, Saudi Arabia is not following Islam.
No.
And
And
they
that's probably where
don't
that comes
allow churches to be built. And until recently, if you got together and did a service other than a Muslim service, you can get in trouble. You know, so, you know, no Bible studies, none of that. But now they're a little bit lax, becoming lax on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not allowing women to drive, or, you know, all of this stuff is not, it's just,
It's the rule.
it's tribal. It's more tribal tradition than it is Islam.
I've had friends who have worked in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia is completely different. There's only, 5 million Saudis? Maybe, right?
Yeah, and how many-
There's 1.5 billion Muslims.
More. Saudis are maybe almost like.
Let's say 10 million.
12 million to 13 million, yes.
20 million. That's still not that many Muslims compared to the 1.5 billion all over the world. There's a very small part of the population that's that. And you can't generalize about Muslims by what they do in Saudi Arabia. Although Fox News really likes to do that.
I don't watch Fox.
I'm not saying that. I'm just making that statement. I'm not accusing anybody
I
of
don't
anything.
watch CNN or.